I inherited an apartment building from my grandfather and soon discovered one tenant hadn't paid rent in 3 decades. Furious at the thought of all that lost income, I confronted her. Instead of arguing, she calmly told me, "Check your grandfather's old ledgers. Look for my name." When I did, the truth I uncovered shook me to the core. Before we begin this remarkable story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this every day. Now let's go back to the moment I thought I was about to solve my biggest problem. The call from my grandfather's lawyer came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was in my tiny studio, sipping instant coffee and worrying about next month's rent, when the phone rang with news that would change everything. "Mr. Fisher, this is Robert Adams, from Adams & Associates. I stip calling regarding your grandfather's estate." "My grandfather?" I asked, confused. "I haven't spoken to him in years." "I understand, there was some family estrangement, but you are listed as his sole heir. He passed away last week and left you his apartment building." I nearly dropped my coffee. My grandfather, William Fisher, had been a successful businessman, but back in college, our family fell apart over my father's gambling debts. My grandfather had refused to keep covering them, and I had sided with my father, a decision that led to regret as my dad's addiction destroyed everything. An apartment building. Yes, a 6-unit property in the Riverside district. It's been his main source of income for 3 decades. We still need your signature on some documents, and I still brief you on the management details. 2 days later, I stood in front of a striking brick building in one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods. 4 stories tall, with bay windows and manicured landscaping. It was obvious even to me that the property was valuable. "Mr. Fisher?" A woman in her 50s approached with a clipboard. "I am Linda Benson, the property manager. I been handling operations for your grandfather." "Nice to meet you, Linda." I'll admit, I don't know a thing about managing a building." "That's fine. We can handle it together, but there are issues you should know right away." Her face tightened. "The building has been losing money for years, and there's one tenant in particular who's been a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" "Her name is Paula Hendress. She lives in the penthouse, Unit 4B. She's been here 30 years and has never paid a single dollar in rent." I stared at her. 30 years? Why wasn't she evicted? "Your grandfather refused. Anytime I brought it up, he just said, 'Seer Paula stays.' Sitchin changed the subject. I tried looking into it, but there's no lease on file and no paperwork explaining the arrangement." "How much money are we talking about?" Linda checked her clipboard. "The penthouse is the largest unit. At today's market rates, it would rent for about $3,500 a month. Over 30 years." She paused. "That's over $1 million in lost revenue." $1 million. I could barely process it. Someone had lived rent-free for 3 decades, in my building, costing me a fortune. "What's she like?" I asked. "Elderly, probably mid-70s. Very private. Polite, but never explains the situation. She just says it was an arrangement with Mr. Fisher." "Well, it's not arranged with me," I said sharply. "I need to speak to her immediately." Linda hesitated. "Your grandfather was very protective of her. He left instructions that she should never be harassed." "My grandfather is gone, and I buried in student loans and credit card debt. I can let someone occupy $1 million apartment for free." That afternoon, I climbed the stairs to the penthouse, my frustration growing with every step. The oak door bore a brass plate, "P. Hendress." I knocked firmly. "Just a moment," came a calm, cultured voice with the faint rasp of age. The door opened to reveal a woman in her mid-70s, silver hair neatly tied in a bun, sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She wore a simple cardigan and slacks, tasteful but modest. "You must be Carter," she said. "Before I introduced myself, you look just like your grandfather at your age." "Miss Hendress, I sent me here to discuss your rent situation." "I assumed as much. Please come in." The apartment was beautiful. High ceilings, hardwood floors, and panoramic city views, modest but refined furnishings, antique pieces, shelves of old books, and tasteful art gave the space quiet dignity. "Tea," she offered, as if this were a social call. "No, thank you. I still get straight to the point. Steph inherited this building and discovered you haven't set paid rent in 30 years. You still need to start paying market rate immediately. Or leave." Paula nodded and settled into a chair, motioning for me to sit. "I understand your position, Carter. From where you stand, I'm just living here for free. But before you decide anything, I'd like you to do one thing. Go down to the basement storage room and look through your grandfather's old ledgers. Search for my name, Paula Hendress. Read the entries carefully." "Why would your name be there?" "Because 30 years ago, your grandfather and I struck a business deal, one you may find enlightening." "What kind of deal?" She gave a faint, sad smile. "The kind that saved your grandfather Sep's business and built your family Sep's fortune. Without it, you wouldn't Sept have inherited this building at all." "I don't understand." "You will. Check the ledgers. Start with 1993. Then come back, and we still talk." I left Paula's apartment, more puzzled than angry. Her calm certainty unsettled me. She didn't act like someone taking advantage. She acted like someone with every right to stay. The basement was cluttered with boxes, furniture, and old files. After 2 hours of digging, I finally found a stack labeled Business Records 1990-1995. Inside the boxes were dozens of leather-bound ledgers filled with my grandfather's precise handwriting. I started with the year 1993, flipping through pages of income, expenses, rent payments, and maintenance costs. Every transaction was recorded in detail. On page 127 of the July 1993 ledger, I found the first mention of Paula Hendress. July 15, 1993. Emergency loan from P. Hendress, $250,000. Terms interest-free, no repayment schedule, no collateral. I read it 3 times, hardly believing it. $250,000, interest-free, with no repayment required. In 1993, that was an enormous sum. I kept going and soon found more entries. August 3, 1993. Additional loan from P. Hendress, $150,000. September 12, 1993. Final loan installment, $100,000. Total borrowed $500,000. $500,000. Paula Hendress had lent my grandfather that amount without interest or repayment terms. But why? And what had he needed it for? I found the explanation in a separate ledger labeled Crisis Management 1993. It painted a grim picture. My grandfather's construction company had been collapsing. A major client defaulted on payments. A lawsuit drained his cash reserves. The bank threatened foreclosure on all his properties, including the apartment building. June 30, 1993. Bank notice foreclosure proceedings to begin July 31st, unless $400,000 payment made. July 1st, 1993. All assets at risk. Bankruptcy imminent. July 14th, 1993. Pet Hendress offers assistance. Miracle. I sat in the dusty basement, stunned. In 1993, my grandfather had been on the verge of ruin. Then Paula stepped in with the money that saved him. But I still didn't understand. How had she known about his struggles? Why lend so much with no guarantee of repayment? Further entries revealed the answer. July 20th, 1993. Agreement with P. Hendris finalized. Loan amount $500,000. Terms, interest-free, no repayment required. Condition, lifetime residence in apartment 4B, rent-free, July 21st, 1993. P. Hendris moves into 4B. July 22nd, 1993. Bank payment made, foreclosure avoided, business saved. Behind the ledgers was a manila folder marked P. Hendris. Private, inside were legal documents and clippings that explained everything. Paula Hendris wasn't just a generous stranger. She had been a highly successful investment banker who built a fortune during the stock market boom of the early 1990s. By age 42, she was one of Wall Street's most accomplished women. The documents showed she had learned of my grandfather's crisis through a business contact. Instead of treating it as a normal deal, she structured it differently. A $500,000 lifeline, in exchange for lifelong residence in the penthouse, with no rent and no repayment. Tucked inside was also a handwritten note from my grandfather, dated July 15, 1993. Paula Hendris is not only saving my business, she is saving my family SEP's future. Without her, we lose everything. The apartment is a small price for the gift she is giving us. I will ensure her generosity is honored for as long as I live. I read for another hour. Paula's loan had given my grandfather breathing room. Within 2 years, his business recovered and expanded. By 1995, it was worth $2 million. By 2000, $5 million. And when he sold it in 2005, he walked away with $12 million. None of it would have been possible without Paula's help. The building I had inherited, the comfortable life my family enjoyed, even my grandfather's ability to send me to college before our fallout, all of it existed because of Paula's generosity, and I had marched to her door, intending to evict her. When I returned upstairs, my mindset had completely shifted. Paula opened the door, saw my expression, and nodded knowingly. "You found the ledgers." "Paula?" I had no idea. I said, "I'm so sorry." "Come in, Carter. It's time we had a proper conversation." This time, I accepted her offer of tea. As we sat in her elegant living room, I finally spoke. "You saved my grandfather SEP's business." "I made an investment," she corrected gently. "One that turned out very well for your family. But you never asked for repayment. $500,000, and you just let it go." She settled into her chair, her blue eyes calm. "In 1993, I was 42 and worth about $8 million. I had more money than I needed, but no real happiness. I spent 20 years building a career on Wall Street and sacrificed everything else. I was successful but alone." "So why help my grandfather?" I asked. "Because William had something I lost: integrity. He was a good man who built an honest business, who cared more about his workers than about maximizing profit. When I learned he was in trouble, I saw a chance to use my money for something meaningful." "And the apartment arrangement?" "That was my idea," Paula said firmly. "I didn't want him to feel indebted. I didn't want him struggling to repay money. I didn't need, so I offered it as a trade. My money for a permanent home, not just any home, Carter. A place where I could belong." "You could have lived anywhere in the city." She smiled. "True, but I didn't want just another apartment. I wanted neighbors, community, and a sense of family. This building gave me that." "Have you been happy here?" I asked. "Happier than I ever was in my Manhattan penthouse. Your grandfather became like a father to me. The tenants became friends. This place gave me the family I never had." I felt my throat tighten. "Paula, I came here ready to evict you. I was furious about the lost rent. I had no idea what you had done for us." "Of course you didn't. William was a private man, and he respected my wish to keep our agreement quiet. I never wanted recognition or thanks. I only wanted a place to call home. And truthfully, Carter, the money you gave up was never money I needed. I've lived comfortably off my investments for the past 30 years. Over the next hour, Paula shared more about her life in the building. She had quietly supported other tenants for decades, paying Mrs. Harry's medical bills in 2A, when she couldn't afford cancer treatment, covering rent for the young family in 1B when the father lost his job, and funding college tuition for the teenager in 3A whose parents couldn't manage it. "You've been taking care of everyone," I said in disbelief. "This building has taken care of me for 30 years, Paula replied. "It only seemed right to give back." Paula, I don't set know how to apologize for what I said earlier, and I don't set know how to thank you for what you sep done for my family. You don't set need to do either, she answered softly. But I do have one request. Anything. Your grandfather left you this building because he believed you had the character to carry on his commitments, and asking to live out my life here, in the home I sep loved for 3 decades. Of course, Paula. This is your home. It always will be. Thank you, Carter. That means more than you know. As I prepared to leave, she walked me to the door. There's something else, she said. Your grandfather left detailed instructions about this building. He wanted you to understand not only the business side, but also the human side. This isn't just property. It's a community. What do you mean? I asked. Look in his desk drawer when you get home. You still find a letter. It explains his philosophy about being a landlord. I think it will guide you. That evening, I found the letter. In my grandfather's careful handwriting, it read, Carter, you've inherited a responsibility to the people who live here. Being a landlord isn't just about collecting rent, it's about providing shelter, safety, and dignity to families who trust you with their most basic need. Paula Hendris saved our family when we had nowhere to turn. She asked for nothing except a place to belong. Honor that not just because it's legal, but because it's right. She gave us everything we have. More than that, learn from her. Use this building to build community, not just wealth. The tenants aren't income sources. They're neighbors. And neighbors care for each other. I hope you'll be the kind of landlord I tried to be, and the kind of person Paula inspired me to be. Money comes and goes, but kindness and relationships endure. Signed, your grandfather, William Pfizer. I folded the letter carefully, finally understanding the true weight of what I had inherited. This wasn't just a building, it was a legacy of compassion built by my grandfather and Paula. In the following months, I immersed myself in property management, but with a different mindset. Instead of chasing maximum profit, I followed their example. When Mrs. Perry in 2A needed a new air conditioner she couldn't afford, I installed one and spread the cost across her rent, interest-free. When the family in 1B had another baby and needed more space, I helped them move to a larger unit in a sister building my grandfather had owned, keeping their rent the same. Paula became my unofficial advisor, teaching me how to balance running a business with caring for people. Her decades of experience in finance and human nature made her guidance priceless. The secret, she told me one afternoon, is realizing that taking care of people is good business. Happy tenants stay longer, take better care of the property, and bring in friends. Kindness isn't sifted just right. It's sifted smart. She was right. Under my grandfather's compassionate management, turnover had been almost non-existent. Tenants stayed for years, even generations, providing steady income that far outweighed the occasional accommodation or repair. 6 months after inheriting the building, I uncovered something even more surprising than Paula's original loan. Among my grandfather's papers was a folder labeled P. Hendris Ongoing. Inside were records showing that Paula had quietly funded major improvements for decades. A new roof in 1998. She paid half. Elevator modernization in 2005. She covered the full cost. Heating system upgrade in 2010. Again, her money. When I confronted her, she simply shrugged. "It's my home, Carter. When you love your home, you take care of it. But you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I lived in a beautiful, well-kept building for 30 years, worth every penny. Paula, you weren't freeloading. You were subsidizing this place. I contributed what I could, just like everyone else." A year later, I received an offer from a development company, $15 million to buy the property and replace it with luxury condos. It was more money than I had ever imagined. I brought the offer to Paula, expecting her heartbreak. Instead, she smiled. "Congratulations, Carter. That's life-changing money." I not taking it. "Why not?" "Because this isn't just an investment. It sets a community. It sets Mrs. Perry home, the Johnsons' home, and yours. I can destroy that for money." Her eyes filled with tears. "Your grandfather would be so proud." I learned from the best teachers. 2 years later, I had grown into managing 5 buildings, all guided by the same philosophy Paula and my grandfather had instilled in me, that being a landlord is about more than collecting rent. Paula became my partner in everything but name. Her financial expertise, combined with compassion, shaped a management style both humane and profitable. "You know," she told me one evening, as we reviewed renovation plans, "I never thought my retirement would be this fulfilling. When I left Wall Street, I assumed I just read books and live quietly. But working with you, building something meaningful, has given me purpose again." "You given me more than purpose, Paula. You given me a calling. We've given each other a second chance," she said. On the 3rd anniversary of inheriting the building, I hosted a gathering for all the tenants. As I looked around, at Paula cradling Mrs. Perry's new grandchild, at the teenagers from 3SA now thriving in college, thanks to Paula's hidden scholarships, I realized I had inherited something far beyond property. I had inherited a legacy of kindness, proof that business could uplift rather than exploit, and a reminder that the most valuable investments are in people. Paula may have saved my grandfather's business with her money, but she saved my soul with her example. She showed me that true wealth isn't measured in accounts, but in the lives we touch and the communities we nurture. The woman I once thought of evicting had become my mentor, partner, and family. And every month when I didn't charge her rent, I was reminded some debts can never be repaid. They can only be honored in how we choose to live. This is a powerful story of hidden generosity, the real meaning of wealth, and how acts of kindness can echo through generations. Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story of compassion, gratitude, and community inspired you, please like the video and subscribe for more stories about the hidden heroes who shape our lives. Don't forget to click the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.